2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, February 5th, 2019 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. As this is a reorganizational meeting, I, as Superintendent, will open the meeting. And so we are calling it to order at this time, and this meeting is being aired live by LCTV, and we have a requirement to see if there is anyone else that might be taping tonight's meeting. All right, seeing none, the meeting is called to order. If you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So my duties here will shortly end with this, organizing this meeting. And so at this point, I will entertain motions for the position of Chair of the Long Meadow School Committee for the remainder of the 2018-2019 school year.
I move that the school committee appoint Armin Ray as chair of the school committee for the remainder of the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those, does this need to be by roll call, Diane? Safely, we could do it that way. So by roll call vote, those in favor of the motion to appoint Armin Ray as chair of the school committee for the remainder of the 2018-2019 school year. Bronwyn?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Susie Bell?
Yes.
All right. So with that,
Armin, aye. Yeah.
all right. So congratulations, Mr. Ray. And it's your meeting at this point. And also, as Armin is settling into his role, welcome the newest member of the Long Meadow School Committee, Susie Bell. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Susie and I had a chance to meet earlier in the week, and she has hit the ground sprinting, and is a quick learner, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Ray.
I'm not moving, no. Why should I move? The camera's moved. I'm humbled. Thank you. I truly appreciate it and look forward to working with everybody. Susie, he stole my thunder. Welcome, and he's right, you have hit the ground on a sprint, so thank you for being there. Before we move on to the next motion that I will entertain, I'd also like to extend a warm gratitude to the cabinet and to Marty and all of the leaders, all of the teachers, for never taking their eyes off the children of this district, no matter what transpires elsewhere. So this board has a lot to do to bridge the trust, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that happens. So thank you. I will now entertain motions for vice chair for the school committee.
I move that the school committee appoint Bronwyn Monahan as vice chair of the school committee for the remainder of the 2018-19 school year.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I think Bronwyn's done a great job, so I think she should be vice chair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote. Susie?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Armin? Aye. Bronwyn? You can if you want.
Vote for yourself.
Come on, vote for yourself.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. We have now filled the position for chair and for vice chair. We now need to fill the role of the clerk. So I will entertain motions for filling the role of the clerk.
I move that the school committee appoint Ryan Kelly as clerk of the school committee for the remainder of the 2018-2019 school year.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing as that there is no discussion, we'll move to a vote. Roll call. Susie?
Aye.
Ryan Kelly?
Yes.
Bronwyn Monahan?
Yes.
Armin Ray, aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's good or not. But
So now we need to move forward on committee assignments. There are two pressing committee assignments that are before us. The first one is for somebody to sign the payroll warrants. Ryan, you are already assigned to that, so unless there is any, accounts payable, okay. Ryan's already assigned to accounts payable.
Correct.
Okay. We need a second or an alternate for that, correct?
So he was assigned as the alternate, so I don't know if you want to redo the whole appointment.
Okay. All right, seeing as Ryan's the alternate, I will entertain motions or
I'm happy to do both, the second part. Be the first for both the warrant, are we doing both warrants and the payroll at this point? Or no?
I think they're two more.
Two separate.
two separate motions.
Okay.
So, okay,
Just
so we
you know, I'm
need,
happy to do it.
we need a main signer on the payroll warrants. I would entertain a motion for that.
I move that the school committee designate Ryan Kelly to review and approve the warrants and to appoint Bronwyn Monahan as his backup.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? Seeing none, just move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oops. Majority. Okay. So, no, which one do you need next?
The payroll.
Okay. And Ryan can sign payroll already, or no?
Nobody can.
Okay, all right. So we need a motion on payroll warrants, please.
I move that the school committee authorize Ryan Kelly to sign payroll sheets for FY 2019.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Haven't seen a motion and a second, any discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote, all in favor? Majority, unanimous. Okay, so those are the ones that we had to fill right away. There are other assignments that are, you can review, the subcommittee assignments, which we're gonna have to reassign going forward. Ryan's already on the finance and capital, so I think we're fine until we reconstitute evaluation as well. And then the other ones, there's no work that, correct, Marty, that it's gonna be done before the 20, or that really needs to be before the 25th, that we can't represent with the person being there anyways?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we are going to just be looking out for meetings as they come, and if one of us can cover them, or if we see the PTO meetings that are coming up, just,
Yeah.
try and cover them as well.
We'll keep you posted on SEAL meetings, if there's any METCO events, or school events, you're welcome to attend any of those, so we'll be sure to get those dates out to you.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you. Moving on to correspondence. Would the clerk read the correspondence?
Following correspondence will be recorded. An emailed letter regarding the non-renewal of Superintendent O'Shea's contract from Patrick Philbin, received on January 7th, 2019. A letter from Susan Bertrand, Thomas Mazza, Jean Fontaine, Nicholas George, Thomas Landers, Nicole Allen, Neil Guile, Amy Bastian, Donna Hutton, Elizabeth Nelson, dated January 8, 2019, invoking whistleblower protections afforded under the Mass General laws and statutes. Emailed letters regarding the special town meeting on January 17, 2019, from the following people: Lynn Hopkins, 1/10/2019, Gerald Duquette, 1/10/2019. An emailed letter from Mr. Sean Sheridan, received on January 16, 2019, regarding the recent publicity regarding the school committee. An emailed note from Mr. Jack Flynn, a reporter from the Republican Mass Live, received on January 11, 2019, requesting an interview with the school committee chair. An emailed letter dated January 3, 2019, from Mr. Donald Jarvis of Lower Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative, regarding the Student of the Month for December 2018. A letter from Mr. William Welch dated January 26, 2019, regarding a public records request.
Thank you, Ryan. Moving on, we have approval of the minutes. Do I have any motions on approval of minutes?
No. I move that the school committee approve the minutes to the December 18, 2018 school committee meeting as presented.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing as none, call for a vote. All those in favor? All those abstaining?
Yes.
We have a second set of minutes.
I move that the school committee approve the minutes to the January 8, 2019 school committee meeting as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing as none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? All those abstaining? Great. At this point in tonight's meeting, I would open up for any visitor comments. Visitor comments? Okay, seeing that there are none, moving on to school committee announcements and recognitions. Any school committee announcements and/or recognitions? Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead. Yes, Bronwyn.
I just wanted to say that it was a while ago now, but I attended the robotics, the Long Meadow robotics launch party a few weeks ago, held at the high school. It was very exciting. All the students were there, not knowing. It was like a big reveal via video, not knowing what the assignment was going to be, and it's way above a lot of my stuff. It's a lot of science and robots and all that stuff. So very exciting. Something to do with space, and they were seemingly ecstatic. They got to work right that day, and Mr. Allen Tuck has invited some of us to attend any of the robotics meetings, which I know some people have already let him know that they'll be there, and I also look forward to attending. And good luck to the team for the whole year. Thanks.
Great. Any further comments or recognitions? Seeing none, we are at the point in our agenda, we are where we're going to do the public hearing, but we can't have the public hearing until 6:30 because we did put a time certain to the public hearing, so we cannot start it before 6:30. So I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules to address the other items on the agenda at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move the agenda.
Yep. Perfect.
Second.
All in favor? Or, sorry, any discussion? Sorry about that. All in favor? No? Okay, we're going to move forward. I had spoken with or looked at the agenda earlier. Dr. O'Shea, looking calendar, field trips, probably two to take care of first.
Yeah, so there's at least a couple items on there that we can address in short order with the time that we have before the public hearing. So if you'd like, I could talk to you a little bit about the 2019-2020 calendar for starters.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So the 2019-2020 school calendar is in your packet, and the calendar was previously approved by the school committee, but it went out to staff. But before it went home, we realized that there were some holidays that were not accurately placed, and so we had to reconvene our calendar committee and to make the adjustments to the 1920 calendar. So the calendar before you is in most respects the same as was previously approved. There's a couple of adjustments here. We have the Jewish holidays properly placed. The new calendar would have the school year end on June 17th instead of June 16th. That would be if there were no interruptions by snow days. And then this new version of the 1920 calendar moves a professional development day from October 7th to October 15th, when it would bump up against Columbus Day. And so we think the calendar does a nice job of creating as much continuity as possible. There's some months where the interruptions are unavoidable because of holidays and professional development days or parent-teacher conferences, that kind of thing. But the calendar before you was unanimously recommended and voted upon by the calendar committee. So it's there for your consideration. We're happy to answer any questions you might have about the 2019-2020 calendar.
Thank you. Do I have a motion on the calendar?
I move on the recommendation of the calendar committee that the school committee approve the 2019-2020 school calendar as presented.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on, if we take on the field trips, please.
Field trip, sure. So there are, for your consideration, 3 overnight field trip requests from Long Meadow High, and Principal Landers is with us in the audience. If there are any detailed questions, I'm sure he could assist. One is a overnight field trip request for a trip to Italy. This is February 14th to the 23rd. This is the final approval for this trip. This was received preliminary approval from the school committee probably a year ago. The school administration has confirmed that there hadn't been any changes to the accommodations or the itinerary in any substantive ways. So at this point, the business trip to Italy is there for your consideration and final approval.
Okay, there is a motion on the field trip to Italy. Oh, yeah. Is there a motion?
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Long Meadow High School to travel to Italy on February 14, 2019 through February 23rd, 2019.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Have a great time, Mr. Pantuska.
It's a big group heading to Italy. They've got a chock-full agenda. The next one is a overnight field trip request from the Key Club. This is for Mr. DeBurn, our Key Club advisor, to travel to the Key Club convention with students. I believe the Key Club it's in downtown Springfield, Springfield Sheraton Marriott, and they would depart on Friday and return on Sunday, April 7th. So that is for your consideration.
Great. Is there a motion?
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Long Meadow High School Key Club to travel to Springfield on April 5th, 2019 through April 7th, 2019.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seeing a motion as second, I'll call for any discussion.
My daughter's on Key Club. They're great.
Yeah.
So is Reggie.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous.
And then finally, Kayla Werlin, Music Department Chair, is proposing an overnight field trip to the 2019 All-State Music Festival, and this would depart on February 28th, return March 2nd. This year, the All-State Music Festival is in Boston, and they would be heading to the Seaport Hotel and World Trade Center in Boston. Approximately 29 students would be traveling with Ms. Werlin and other chaperones, so for your consideration.
Great. Is there a motion?
I move on the recommendation of the superintendent that the school committee approve the overnight field trip request for students from Long Meadow High School to travel to Boston on February 28th, 2019 through March 2nd, 2019.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? I would just like to say that it's amazing the number of children who qualified for all states. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. Those musicians and singers and put tons of time and effort into this, and the work of K-Rolls and the team is just awesome and just should be applauded. So no further discussion for me. All those in favor? Good luck. Okay.
The other items on the agenda will probably take more time than we have before the public hearing is scheduled to start, so you could recess for 10 minutes or so.
Will Mr. Crane take more than 10 minutes on his, or?
I suspect he would.
Okay, Mr. Crane is
He's
shaking his head. So,
signaling
Mr. Crane, would you like to come up and?
Admittedly, brevity is not my strong suit, but if you want to get backed up by a public hearing, I'm willing to give it a try. So I just wanted to come here tonight and provide kind of a status report on the search for a consultant for the superintendent. In short, it's kind of on hold. When we only received one proposal. We did send it to 14 firms. In 2016, when we did this last time, we received 4 proposals. There were some concerns. I received a letter from a resident raising some concerns about some things that had happened before the formalized RFP process had begun that may have had what they termed a chilling effect on the response rate. I'll be candid and say that I found that argument somewhat compelling based on my experience doing many procurement processes and looking at some of the information that was provided, as well as, like I said, our typical process and our normal response rate. So I had appointed a selection committee to review what we thought were going to be proposals, potentially interview firms, and then evaluate and make a recommendation back to the school committee. I had reached out to that committee to set a meeting. It never really gets off the ground. It never gets scheduled. I didn't really hear back from everybody. Had we had that discussion, I was going to advise the selection committee that perhaps a discussion about an alternative pathway forward was in order, given the concerns that were raised, the concerns that I personally had about the proposal and the quality of the level and quality of the response. There were a variety of factors that were highlighted that could have resulted in only getting one response, including the duration that the RFP was open, some of the I'll just say publicity, given the situation around the school committee at the time, and other factors. I hope to have the chance to talk that out with the selection committee, get their input before deciding where to go. So since we never had the committee meeting, and then there wasn't really a school committee until tonight that could meet and take a recommendation, we haven't really done very much with it.
So, is there any questions for Mr. Crane?
I'm not sure if this is a question for Mr. Crane. Can we suspend that search?
We were doing the search in support of the school committee. Like I said, I think my recommendation was going to be, is there a different way we could go about this? Just given objectively speaking, given the results and some of the other factors, was there a different way to go about this? And we haven't really said, we haven't had a chance to have that discussion. I'm willing to have it, but yes, I believe if the school committee took a position to suspend the search, of course we would do that.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Thanks for coming here tonight, Mr. Crane. I agree. I think until, given that we're going to be having interviews on the 25th jointly with the select board and moving forward as well from there, if somebody wanted to make a motion to suspend the search indefinitely, I would call that in order.
I move to suspend the superintendent search.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this point, we have 5 minutes until the public hearing. I don't think there's any more items that we can get done before this, so I would entertain a motion to recess for 5 minutes.
Motion to recess for 5 minutes until the budget hearing at 6:30.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor? We are in recess for 5 minutes. Welcome back to this evening's Tuesday, February 5th, 2019 School Committee meeting. We are now going to be moving into the public hearing on the fiscal year 20 budget. Dr. O'Shea will provide a presentation on the budget for us. We will then entertain questions from the public, from the gallery, and until those questions are finished, then we will close the public hearing and move back into the business of the school committee. So as of now, I will open the public hearing on the budget. Dr. O'Shea.
All right, so thank you. We are pleased tonight to hold this hearing on the recommended FY20 budget, and this is a public hearing that is required by statute and is in line with the timeline for us to ultimately vote a budget, have the school committee vote a budget, and then submit it to the town manager for consideration by the select board and ultimately for consideration at town meeting. I want to thank the administrative team seated behind me for coming out tonight. We build this budget collaboratively. We build it based on a lot of conflicting priorities sometimes, good priorities, and at the end of the day, we reach some strong consensus on a budget that is reflective of our school and district goals. So I want to thank them for coming out and for their willingness to field any questions that the committee might have or the public might have tonight. And then special thanks to Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, Tom Mazza, for his work over the last couple of months pulling together the detailed budget documents that are in the school committee's packet this evening and that have also been posted to our district website and are available at Town Hall, I believe, as well. So if anyone at home listening is interested in reviewing those documents, you certainly can make your way to our website for those, or we're happy to provide those to any interested community member. One of the things that we wanted to do tonight was to kind of deconstruct the budget to help the community understand the essential building blocks of a school budget. I think Tom and I both think that that school financing will be an important part of the public debate at the state level as the state budget becomes clearer. And so we want to be sure that we understand it at a local level and how it impacts us here in Long Meadow. So for tonight, I chose FY17 figures to sort of illustrate the key components of school financing, and FY17 because the budget numbers are certified and settled and not reflective of anything that is not sort of in the books. So one of the key components of school financing is what's called the foundation budget. And the state, in its wisdom, has developed a formula to determine what the cost of providing a fair and adequate and minimum education is for students in the Commonwealth. And this is supposed to be reflective of enrollment programs and the demographic characteristics of students within a given district. Now, this formula was developed in 1993 as a way to provide more equitable funding to schools or districts across the Commonwealth. And so what this in FY17, the state had determined that the required spending, the foundation budget for Long Meadow Public Schools was just over $26 million. Now, Long Meadow spent in FY17 well beyond that figure, but this is what the state had determined was the sort of fair and adequate minimum amount that needed to be spent. So when that foundation budget consists of two important factors. It consists of a local contribution, and this is a contribution that every city and town and every region in the state makes based essentially on its ability to pay. And so the Department of Revenue has a formula that maybe some of our students in the robotics club could understand, but it's beyond my comprehension. But essentially it's a way to determine what individual cities and towns are expected to contribute on a minimum basis to make up a chunk of that foundation budget. The other piece of that then comes from State Chapter 78. So again, using FY17 as an illustration, you'll see that the expectation was at the time that Long Meadow contribute minimally over $21 million to supplement the $4.5 million that the state provided in Chapter 78. And so those two components together made up the foundation budget. Now, on top of that, Long Meadow, we're very fortunate to work and learn in a community that contributes above what is minimally required. In fact, most cities and towns in the Commonwealth contribute well over what is minimally required. The districts that try to educate their students at that minimum amount, at that foundation level, really struggle, frankly, to provide an adequate education to students. So, again, we were fortunate that Long Meadow is in a position to contribute above what is minimally required, just as nearly every other city and town in the state is. And then on top of that are grants and other forms of special revenue. So taken together, those are essentially the building blocks of a school budget. Now, the question is, why are we talking about this? And I think this is where it's important that we understand the formula locally, because it obviously has implications for the district. So I'm just going to pop up here for a minute. You'll see that this is a Chapter 70 district profile, and this is available publicly to all cities and towns. And this is the Long Meadow profile. And you'll see that the red bar here is Chapter 78. And you'll notice that it's really been stagnant over the last 10 years. There's been some ups and downs, but largely Chapter 70 financing has been fairly stagnant in the last 10 years. But meanwhile, the true cost of educating students has grown at a higher rate. And so the burden has been upon the community, the Long Meadow community, to make up the difference. And the profile that you see here is repeated in nearly every other city and town in the Commonwealth. And I really want to emphasize that Long Meadow's experience mirrors the experience of so many other cities and towns. And so a lot of cities and towns, because state aid has been flat, cities and towns have been challenged to make up the difference, essentially. And so the blue bar represents the combination of Chapter 78 and what is minimally required. And then between the blue bar and here is the contribution above what is minimally required. So again, we're fortunate that that we are able, Long Meadow is able to finance education to the degree that it does, and that we place so much value on the importance of educating children. But it has been a strain on the Long Meadow community locally, just as it's been a strain on communities across the Commonwealth. So the reason we mention this tonight is that, Tom and I both feel that school financing is going to be an important sort of part of the state level discussion as the state budget is developed over the next few months. And increasingly, there is a lot of conversation about the adequacy of Chapter 78 and whether or not Chapter 78 is reflective of the true costs of educating children in the Commonwealth. And so I think that to the extent that the state were to address the inadequacy of Chapter 78, it would obviously be a great relief to us here locally. So in 2015, the state commissioned a Foundation Budget Review Committee to take a look at the foundation budget formula. And that commission came back and, not unsurprisingly, said that the foundation budget dramatically underestimates the true costs of educating children. Remember, the formula was developed in '93, and so much has changed over the last 25 years. The needs of students in terms of technology, the demands of school budgets to finance salaries and health insurance have increased dramatically, and the costs associated with addressing students' needs through special education programming have also increased dramatically. So the Foundation Budget Review Commission kind of noted in very explicit detail that foundation budget fails to address the true costs of educating children in the Commonwealth. Recently, the Mass Budget and Policy Center had developed some reform scenarios that, if implemented, would increase Chapter 70 aid to Longmeadow somewhere between $865,000 a year and $1.2 million by 2023 if it were phased in over the next 5 years. So these scenarios have gotten a lot of attention, and it's encouraging that there is increasing attention at the state level to the adequacy of the foundation budget and the adequacy of Chapter 70 aid. So the governor's budget just came out January 23rd, I think it was, and the governor's budget encouragingly proposes an increase in Chapter 70 aid to Longmeadow by a 6.88% increase, which is about over $360,000 above FY19. So this is a good sign. You know, we hope that this trend continues and that the Chapter 70 proposed increases survive the House debates and the Senate debates. If it does, it would be welcome relief to us here locally. And the governor's budget had proposed sort of a 7-year phase-in of the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review Committee that will, over the course of 7 years, address the findings of that commission. So I just want to stop there. This is the broad sort of political, economic context for the development of our budget. And just sort of hold and see if it's appropriate to see if the committee or if anybody has any questions or comments at this point on this.
Any questions, comments? Anybody?
Okay. So on to the FY20 budget recommendation. Again, a collaborative effort that we have developed, and one that we hope you see is reflective of so many of the priorities that we have talked about at the district and at the individual school level. And before we get into the specifics, wanted to brag a little bit and perhaps show the community that the significant investment that this community makes, that there is a significant return on that investment. And some of you may be familiar with the niche report. It's a report that compiles a lot of publicly available data and rankings and profiles, and the niche, niche.com has indicated that Longmeadow is among the top school districts in the nation, and on a number of different indicators, in terms of the best athletic programs, best school districts, the safest schools, best places to teach, and districts with the best teachers. So we're really pleased that that the niche report ranks us so highly at the national level, and similarly at the state level. We have a good standing using the indicators supplied by the niche report. No need to linger on that, but moving forward, is it frozen here? Just a couple of other quick indicators. The new MCAS, we seem to be getting out of the gate effectively in terms of the number of students who are meeting or exceeding expectations in grades 3 through 8 in both math and ELA. And then we're also proud of the results that we're seeing on AP performance, the percentage of students that are scoring 3 or higher in Longmeadow as compared to the state and national levels. So, of course, there's so many different indicators of school success. One of the newer indicators that we're looking at is from a school climate survey that the Department of Education has administered through at the tail end of the MCAS exam, and so grades 5, 8, and 10. Students are self-reporting on their experiences with school climate, and on these indicators, we're faring very, very well also. And these are sort of early indicators. The data isn't perfect yet, but we're pleased to see that we're faring well on that school survey instrument put out by the Department of Education. So, the FY20 budget recommendation. The information in the school committee packet and posted to the website is very, very detailed and shows on a line item by a line item basis the proposed allocations. This is the highest level summary that we can sort of possibly offer to you. You'll note that this proposal would request a $808,000 increase in general fund revenue from FY19 to FY20. You'll note that we are projecting a decrease in special revenues, which Mr. Mazza could explain some of the revenue funds that are associated with the special revenues, but we're anticipating a decrease in the revenue that we'll experience from circuit breaker, school choice, Metco, thank you, et cetera. And all in all, this would result in a proposed increase of $624,000 over FY19. And for those of you who think in terms of percentages, the general fund request would be a 2.36% increase over FY19, and the overall expenditures would go up by 1.7% over FY19. Taking a more detailed look at the revenue sources, again at a fairly high level, you'll see the breakdown in terms of the revenue sources, the general fund, proposed budget, and then the sources of revenue from circuit breaker, Metco, school choice, et cetera. You'll note that school choice revenue is projected to go down by about $38,000 or so. And we are projecting for this budget for now the same number of choice students in FY20, but we're anticipating that the reimbursement that we receive for students who have needs above and beyond regular education needs will decrease in FY20. So that explains the decrease that we are projecting in terms of school choice revenue. Similarly, circuit breaker revenue we're anticipating a decrease there as well. Circuit breaker is a revenue source that provides revenue to address the needs of special education students exceeding a threshold that the Department of Education has defined. And that circuit breaker decrease is really reflective of our efforts to build more inclusive programs in district. We've moved away from more costly out-of-district placements, and as we've done that, the result is that circuit breaker reimbursement has declined with that. So when you look at, again, the allocations, this is sort of high-level distribution. You'll see that most of our obligations relate to staff salaries. And so sort of the discretionary portion of the allocations is maybe more limited than most might think, given that so much of the largest wedge of this pie goes towards staff salaries and contracted services, and a fairly small amount towards supplies and materials. We thought it might be helpful to compare the projected increase in the town general fund coming to the school department in FY20 to previous years. So you'll see how that $808,000 increase stacks up and compares to the increases that we have projected in previous years. And again, combining that with the $184,000 decrease that we're anticipating in special revenues.
Marty, can I ask a question?
Yep, sure, yeah.
Those are projected, what you projected in those years, or those actuals?
Those are actuals for the
Okay.
previous years,
Just
yeah.
wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Projected for FY20, I'm sorry,
Thanks.
yeah. And sort of go back to where we began, that high-level FY20 budget recommendation summary and the associated percentage increases. So now, more of a sort of the nuts and bolts of this budget and where we are anticipating reductions and where we are anticipating increases. So I'd highlight a few items, and certainly you may have questions on some others. What may jump out at you is some of the personnel reductions on the middle side of the left chart. And I would assure anyone here, school committee, anyone watching at home, that these are reductions associated with declining enrollment in at the elementary levels. There's simply, we have the need for fewer sections at the elementary level in the coming year. We're anticipating that we will require 2 fewer sections at Blueberry, 1 fewer section at Center School. So essentially more sections moving on to 6th grade than we're anticipating coming into kindergarten. And we have some information on what that looks like in terms of class size for the coming year. We're pleased that this budget recommendation will allow us to run classes of really manageable sizes, and we can show you that shortly. You'll also see some of the more significant reductions is the reduction in out-of-district tuitions. Again, a credit to our Pupil Services Department, our special educators, our regular educators, administrators for building programs where children can be educated in more likely in their home school. And so we're proud of that. And these reductions create opportunities for reallocations on the other side of the chart here. And so I'm just going to flash forward because we believe that.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, looking at that last slide, we've got the bubble going through the 5th grade at Center and Blueberry right now. At least that's what it looks like to me. Correspondingly, we have the capacity at, I mean, you're adding 1 6th grade teacher at, I'm guessing that's Glenbrook, according to this.
Sort of, it's a placeholder in the budget now.
Okay.
But we're going to watch and sort of see where the breakout is and where we need that section.
Oh, sorry, I said Glenbrook here, so that's why I said that.
Yeah.
But, okay. But is that bubble going to do something to the middle school numbers that we're not anticipating, or no? I mean, I know how this works, and you all put a ton of work in this. I'm not second guessing you. I'm just asking.
No, I think it was one of the important sort of critical factors as we were building this budget. And so indeed, we do have a large cohort of 5th graders that are making their way to 6th grade. We feel that if we add 1 additional section at a to-be-determined middle school, that we can accommodate that bubble.
Okay.
Right now, Mr. Mazza, because he had to put it somewhere, had plugged it into Glenbrook
Okay.
as a placeholder, but we still have many students to assign to 6th grade, so in the weeks, months ahead, we'll kind of track that, and we'll have to come back to the committee at some point to kind of place that in the proper line item in the budget. Am I saying that right, in terms of what the committee would need to?
Yeah, and I do think the placement of those 6th graders could impact subsequent years in terms of class size for 7th and 8th. So I would say it's a TBD in terms of future years what the impact could be, because we're not even sure where that extra section may end up at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
So you'll see that, again, the reductions on the left allow us to, I think, make some strategic reallocations here on the right side. And not highlighted, but that's the placement of a sixth grade teacher to accommodate that fifth grade bubble in the coming school year. The ones I highlighted here are the sort of the reallocations that we think really address some critical district goals. We have the addition of an elementary, a slight increase, I should say, in the FTE associated with elementary health. A couple of years ago, we introduced elementary health at the 4th and 5th grade. We think with this increase here that we could expand elementary health at the 2nd and 3rd grade. So that's something that certainly our educators are interested in, our administrative team, but I think the community, our parent community, has also signaled to us that they've seen the value of health instruction and they'd like to look for opportunities to expand it. Extracurriculars. We've heard from our administrative team that our students are eager to be engaged after school. Ms. Monahan mentioned earlier that she had the opportunity to see the work of the robotics club at the high school, and I was there Monday evening as well, and it's so exciting to see kids engaged in learning after school and to be engaged on an extracurricular basis. As a superintendent, as a teacher, as an administrator, I've always believed that you get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of keeping kids engaged, keeping them positively connected to their schools when you make investments in extracurriculars. So it's a modest investment, but it's one that will help us expand extracurriculars at the middle level, the high level, and even look for opportunities at the elementary level as well. The LINK program, this is a program to serve autistic students at the middle school level. Jean Fontaine, our Director of Pupil Services, is here if you have any specific questions on that. This program is actually up and running now, but it seems it needs to be reflected in the FY20 budget, and so it's reflected as an addition here. Lunch monitors, I think there's a general consensus, belief that we need to keep kids active and moving, and so if we have proper lunch monitoring, proper staffing, and we feel like we can increase opportunities for kids to be involved in recess. Pupil Services Clerical support, again, just making sure that we're being, that we're staying on top of and that we're being compliant with the paperwork associated with serving students with specific learning needs. So those are some of the items here that we see as sort of really specifically connected to district goals. Others here are sort of natural increases that result from utilities or transportation increases, or adjusting the budget to reflect the realities that we're currently seeing in terms of travel needs or substitute teacher needs. So that might be worth stopping on this slide. We see this as sort of the kind of a critical summary slide. If any of you have any questions, we're happy to dive a little deeper on that. We can come back. So I think one of the things that we understand that class size is really been an important priority for the Long Meadow Public Schools, and that sort of maintaining class sizes that optimize learning and that are also fiscally responsible is critical for us. So we want to give you a little snapshot of what we can anticipate in terms of class size in the coming year. This is our current enrollment. This is a snapshot from January of 2019. You'll see that, you know, we're experiencing slightly smaller cohort sizes in the lower elementary grades. There's some natural increase that you would likely see as they make their way through the grades, but certainly when you look at the size of our 11th and 12th grade classes versus the size of our K-1-2 classes, you'll see some dramatic differences there. Next year, again, this is based on these are projections based on rolling students, the current students forward. We're not projecting any increase from summertime registrations, let's say. And so you'll see that we're projecting 2 fewer sections at Blueberry Hill in the coming year. And yet, again, the class size there, I think, is consistent with what we've seen in Long Meadow Public Schools in recent memory. And class size that will allow for any growth that we might see in the spring or summer as new registrants show up to Ms. Gigantis, as they often do. That's Blueberry. Center, again, we're anticipating 1 fewer sections. We're anticipating that as 4 sections sort of move on from 5th grade, that we are planning for 3 kindergarten sections in the coming year. The data we're working off right now essentially is census data, and it seems to be tracking behind what we saw this time last year. So we think that we can safely project 3 sections at kindergarten at Center School in the coming year. And consistency at Wolf Swamp as well, anticipating the same number of sections, 18 sections overall at Wolf Swamp this year compared to next. At the middle school level, for this slide, we assumed that the 6th section would be at Williams. Again, we have some wiggle room in terms of where we assign some currently unassigned students. And so if those students were assigned to Williams and we added that 6th section at Williams, you see what the projected class size would be. Again, it's consistent, it's manageable. We're not seeing any unevenness that makes us uncomfortable. It's nice to see that right now we can anticipate consistent class sizes across both middle schools, across all 3 grades. The high school is, it's far too early to provide you with projected class sizes at the high school. They have not yet begun to schedule their 8th graders. They have not yet begun to build their schedule. But in talking to Principal Landers, we would anticipate that given enrollment, that the class size patterns we're seeing this year will likely be replicated next year. So it's difficult sometimes to provide a quick snapshot of high school class size, but this is sort of average class size at Long Meadow High currently in 5 core disciplines. In your packets, we provided some more detailed class size information on Long Meadow High, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have on that. So that concludes our presentation tonight. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I'll open up to the public for any questions. Please come to the microphone, state your name.
Quick one. Liz Bone, 34 Elizabeth Circle. Can you explain the natural gas?
The increase in natural gas. So we happen to have a utility expert in Mr. Mazza. So I'm going to punt that question to him.
Yeah, we are locked in on a contract that keeps the price for the commodity consistent, but as the distribution charges increase, we don't have any control over that. So this is reflective of the increases that the industry has been seeing in regards to the delivery of the commodity to the district. So that's really, and then it's probably some right sizing too based on the weather we've been experiencing over the last couple winters and the consumption in terms of the total therms that we're seeing each year.
Are there any more questions from the public? Questions from the school committee? Ryan?
The high school class sizes on the extra document we have, has this been consistent over the last couple of years?
Yeah, yes. There's some fluctuation based on levels of classes. I think the slide that you saw just shown is taken from courses in the core subjects that have 4 sections or more. Sometimes you have one section of an AP, or you have one section of College Prep 2, and that might throw off numbers. But I think if that's what you're asking, that's consistent. What we anticipate next year is pretty consistent with what we see this year. I will meet with the department chairs after we do all the scheduling. Scheduling of current 8th graders will start right after February break, and then we'll delve into everyone else in March and early April. And we sit down with department chairs and go through numbers and propose class sizes. I meet with the superintendent and walk through that and have to defend that and make sure that the class sizes are acceptable.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the school committee? Okay. Seeing that there's none, I'm going to call the public hearing closed at this time, and we'll move back to regular business. Thank you, Dr. O'Shea.
And again, thanks to our administrative team for coming out. I know Mr. Landers has some business with us still, but I think the rest of the gang can leave. Do we see any need to?
No, I mean, I would say on behalf of the school committee, I know this is not easy work, and you've made it easy for us to take a look at a good budget that is grounded in fiscal responsibility as well as meeting the needs of the kids, and I'm very grateful for all of you and your work you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So moving back to the regular agenda, we are going to move into the LHS Educational Opportunities Book. Mr. Landers, I believe, will be presenting.
Yep.
Dr. O'Shea?
Yeah. So Principal Landers, annually, the high school brings forward updates and changes to the LHS Educational Opportunities Book. This is essentially their program of studies, and it's a fairly dense packet that you received, and as I noted in an email to you, that much of the changes relate to course descriptions and other edits to the document that, in our view at least, don't necessarily require the school committee to approve. You can come on up, Mr. Landers. And pull that down. And then, but there are a number of items that should be reviewed by the school committee and approved. And Mr. Landers is here to provide you with a quick overview. My quick overview would be that there's a new course in music for you to take a look at. There is some additional special programs to be considered to support special education students. And then there's also some courses that would be eliminated from the book for various good reasons. So thanks for coming out, Mr. Landers. And would you, for the committee, would you like him to simply answer questions, or do you want him to overview some of the changes? Do you have any preference?
Whatever's easy. I mean, we've all had a chance to take a look at
I
before.
personally felt it was the changes were very thorough.
Yeah.
I don't, just, you could probably just ask questions, maybe?
I am totally good with that. I agree.
Happy to do so.
I'll open up for questions.
I had just one question. First of all, thank you for making this so thorough, because it really helped, me understand, especially a new person, coming to the school committee, like what the process is. So I'm very appreciative of that.
You're welcome.
I had just one question, and it was just based on something the way it was worded, and it's about the foundations courses that you're adding.
Sure.
And just for, I think, like, just for my understanding, the foundations courses, the purpose of those courses, you know, who they're designed for, how students get placed in them, just for a point of information
Sure.
would be helpful.
Sure. So we have a proposal for creation of some new social studies foundations courses, but we have some existing foundations courses that we created a few years ago. Those are classes we created in order to help our students, all students, access the curriculum. So we're talking about a very small cohort of students, right around 10, who would be applicable to sign up for these classes. These would be students who are on an IEP, and these would be students whose parents, who are a member of the IEP team, decide that that is something that they want. That would be part of the service grid, the C grid, on an IEP,
Yes.
in order to be able to take those classes. And then the recommendation from the supervisor of special education would come to both me and the department chair of school counseling, guidance counseling, and it would require both of us to say, yes, this is appropriate. But they've been good options for students to make sure that they access the curriculum. It's a slower pace. There is repetition as needed, and we're really trying to get these students to access the curriculum and be successful on the traditional MCAS. They are courses that would lead to a diploma, but by definition, they're not college prep. They're substantively different than our college prep or our honors classes. But they've been good. They've helped our students, and the reason we are suggesting and proposing social studies is we've really been working on trying to get people who are already teaching to be double certified, go back and get a second certification in special education and a subject matter, or to hire people with both of those certifications. And this is the first year that we have someone who is special education certified and social studies. So we haven't been able to do it for social studies until this year, and we are, and we just want that as an option for students.
That's great. Thank you so much. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that explanation.
Are there any further questions?
On the same topic, since you've been doing it in other subject areas, has that had an effect on the, like the teacher preps, or how it affects the class sizes for students not in those classes?
It has not had a negative effect on our other class sizes. The class sizes of foundation classes are admittedly smaller,
Right.
considerably smaller. But we've been making an effort, like I said, to get people certified in other areas. We've been making an effort at co-teaching. We just got a special education teacher on her own, to her own credit. Julie Betancourt, who went out and became math certified within the last 2 weeks. That creates opportunities where she wasn't traditionally in the classroom. So by her teaching a class, that's not going to necessarily make the other math classes smaller. Matthew Weber is a traditional special education teacher who is certified also in social studies. So it's not like we're going to make the other social studies classes bigger. Anyway, so it hasn't had, it's only been a positive outcome for the students that took it, and didn't negatively affect our class sizes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Bronwyn?
The reading and language study, it's going to be changed to literacy, comprehension, and expression.
Right. So that is a name change proposal, and there were two thoughts on that. One was that literacy, comprehension, and expression was more appropriate as to what the course entailed. And second,
I like the new name. I was just going to ask a different question.
sure.
And also, the academic expectations are definitely spelled out a little clearer in the changes as well. It says 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. I was wondering if, in the future, if you would look at maybe 9th graders as well, if there's room for them.
We try to prioritize 10th, 11th, and 12th. We would We have not traditionally opened it to ninth graders, and I suppose you have to look at every single situation uniquely and differently. We would consider that. Sometimes there's a demand for that class, and sometimes there's not. That class did not run this year. We're trying to run it next year. We're pretty confident. One of the things that we thought was feedback we heard from students and parents were that reading kind of maybe had a stigma and caused some people not to sign up for it. But if we were going to run that class and if it was appropriate for a ninth grader to take it, we would consider that.
Great, thanks.
Welcome.
I think that will make a difference, the new name, for high
That's the
school
hope.
students specifically.
Any further questions? Just had one, Mr. Landers. On the music percussion, are we using existing resources to expand that program?
Existing resources. Yep.
Okay.
So the music department is excited to offer drummers and percussionists a class unto themselves. And the thought was that they're still going to perform with all the public ensembles. I'll put a plug in. We have our Pops concert Thursday night at 7 p.m. But it's going to be taught within the department. When we hired Dr. Tomasian during his interview, that's one of the things he mentioned. And it's something that a lot of other schools are doing, and we hope to garner some interest, let the existing percussionists get more in-depth instruction, and maybe pull some students who might be playing drums in a garage band who might be intimidated to do it in the past. Come on out and join the LHS music department.
No,
That's the hope.
Great.
It's just getting better. I mean, I appreciate that we brought in the strings program into the honors this year,
Yep.
and the focus on percussion. And my first time around, we were able to bring strings back into the elementary school. So it's a little near and dear to my heart. So I
Great.
really appreciate that.
Super.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we do have a motion. So would somebody entertain the motion?
I move that the school committee approve the changes to the Long Meadow High School Educational Opportunities Booklet as presented for the 2019-2020 school year.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing there's none, I'll vote to a vote. All those in favor? Thank you, Mr. Landers.
Thank you so much. We
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on in the program, Dr. O'Shea.
Just a few upcoming dates for you in terms of my report. And one event that recently occurred. Superintendent and I recently met with our new Parent Curriculum Advisory Council, and I want to thank the dozen or so parents who joined us to create that committee, and it's representative of all grade levels and disciplines, and we had a really robust discussion. We covered the high school reaccreditation process, and we took a look at a document that I hope to bring to the committee at some point, and it's essentially a curriculum planning guide, and it's one of the things that Sue and I have been interested in creating over the last couple of years. So we have pulled together last year and this year our curriculum coordinators, department chairs, to create in a sort of a single document something that can be useful to the committee and to us as an administrative team in terms of making curriculum decisions and help us decide professional development and budgeting and staffing and resource allocations and that kind of thing. So it's in its early stages. It's an imperfect document, but we're proud that we pulled this together with the help of all the coordinators and department chairs. So the Parent Curriculum Advisory Council took a look at that. We have a meeting of the high school start time task force scheduled February 27th. We met last month as well, and we are going to start diving into take a look at some models and see how earlier start times might affect transportation and athletics. So we've sort of done some of the research work, and now we've got to roll up our sleeves and start to take a look at some of the more logistical considerations. And this will be an extended conversation. We're still at the sort of early stages of taking a look at start times in the district. So that's February 27th. Mr. Landers mentioned the Pops concert is coming Thursday. And then I also want to put a plug in for March 5th, Deborah Heitner is coming to the district, sponsored by the Special Programs Committee, to talk about how we can more effectively raise our digital natives. So it's Deborah Heitner, March 5th, 7 p.m., Long Meadow High Auditorium. Looking forward to that. So that's it.
Perfect, thank you. There is no report from the chair. Breggy, do you have a student report?
Yep. So School Committee Student Advisory Council has made a survey. And it just like has a bunch of like, it just like asks students to rate how like strongly they feel about certain issues. So like we have a question about parking lot. We have a question about waiting in the line to get passes for ice. And we have a few more questions, and then like a space where they can just like write whatever concerns they have. And we're looking to send that out sometime this week, and we should be able to get the results from that back to you guys the next time we all meet. So that's all.
What's the ice thing like?
Oh, that's
so. What's
just,
the
like,
process?
In the morning, if you want to leave ice, you're allowed to, but you need a parent note, and you have to come in the morning, so that like that creates some problems with the line, because you have to wait in the line. So what Glenn actually suggested earlier in the year was instead like parents could just like email Mrs. Armardian like the night before, and then that way like and then you could just like get your pass in the morning, and like, or no, it wasn't, you wouldn't get a pass, you get like they'd email you back for like an email confirmation, and then you just show that and leave. So it'd make it faster, but it also like, it might make it more annoying for Mrs. Armardian, because she has to like email back, and it's like night.
Let's not make it more annoying for Mrs.
That can be
O'Marty.
scanned.
Yeah, exactly.
Move faster.
So yes, so we were still talking about that idea, but we just put that on the list in case like anyone else had. Well, most of that was most of the frustration from that was really coming from Glenn. So we were so we were looking at how other students feel about that, and if they had any ideas to make that easier.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Breggy? All right, thank you very much. Moving on, Ryan, do we have a finance subcommittee report at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
The policy sub. We did.
Other than the budget?
Dr. O'Shea, the statements of interest.
So you have in your packet the statements of interest that were submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority around this time last year, and you're aware that we were not invited into the core program by the School Building Authority, and so we've talked about this a little bit. The question before us is whether or not to resubmit statements of interest to address the physical plant needs of our two middle schools. And so the documents would require some updating. They would require us to include any new conditions that have arisen since the last time the SOIs were submitted. We're also hoping to fold in some of the feedback that we will receive hopefully soon from the Permanent Building Committee. The Permanent Building Committee of the town did a little walkthrough of our buildings at the end of the summer, I think it was. And so Mary Beth Bergeron has indicated that she would give us some feedback that perhaps could be reflected in this report. I think that would be helpful in terms of freshening up the document and adding some sort of town-wide perspective. I think the question, though, is we would need to, I think we just need a signal from the committee that you are interested in having us redo the statements of interest, update them, and bring back to you new proposed documents, and then the very specific vote language that the MSBA requires. We would need to do it soon enough to allow us to get a vote from the school committee, but also give us some time to bring it to the select board, because they also have to sign off on the SOIs. They've been receptive to the SOIs the past 2 years. I wouldn't anticipate any change in that if we were to propose a resubmittal. But if the committee is interested in having us redo these documents, we could bring it back to you at a future meeting. And on that note, there's a couple of sort of business items that we have to attend to. One is that we need the committee to convene to vote the budget. And then if you want to do the SOIs, we would need the committee to convene to do the SOIs. Now, we would need to get the budget to Town Manager Crane by February 15th, which would require possibly a meeting next Tuesday. In all honesty, I don't think we would have the SOIs done by next Tuesday, which might require that we have another special meeting. As Diane and Tom and I were looking at the calendar, we thought if the committee was available, to have a quick special meeting over February break. It'd be that Thursday. I don't have the date in front of me.
The 21st.
The 21st of February. And that would be probably for the sole purpose, likely sole purpose of considering the SOIs. So to sum up, if you wanted us to do the SOIs, I don't think we would have them available to you next week, but we could have them available to you if you had a meeting on the 21st of February, if the committee was available. So.
Okay, so there's a regular scheduled meeting the 12th.
There is a scheduled meeting on the 12th.
So we'll put the budget on that for a final vote next week. So that's fine. Any discussion on the SOIs?
What is the argument for not doing it?
The argument for not doing it, I suppose some would say that it is a narrow pipeline, that there's a small chance of a successful application, and that the needs of the middle school should be addressed more urgently, more quickly, using local resources. I suppose that would be the argument not to submit. I don't, at this stage, it would be my recommendation to submit again, and at the same time, sort of the parallel path we would have to be on would be to make the critical investments in the operation of the buildings, the safety of the buildings, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the needs of the middle schools, in my view, are systemic, and to address any one component, you're probably going to wind up having to address multiple components. So I suppose there are some arguments not to submit. I think the more compelling argument is to go ahead and submit again. And I think depends on the year, anywhere from, say, 15 to 25% of applications are successful with the MSBA. Many communities have found that it requires multiple submissions before you get the attention of the MSBA. So.
Yes, Bronwyn?
So then we would, you say we would do something in parallel. I'm wondering if you do stuff while your application is being looked at, does that lessen your chances?
I think it's potentially if you go too far down the road and you're really addressing some systemic things, then you lessen the need, right? But I also think that the MSBA wants to partner with communities that aren't neglecting their buildings. I think they want to partner with responsible communities that can demonstrate that they're trying to maintain and care for the buildings. In fact, when you submit to the MSBA, you have to demonstrate that you have a maintenance plan in place, that you have some plan to care for the building. So I think And, you know, obviously, we, in my view anyways, I don't think we have a choice but to address anything relating to safety, keeping the buildings open. The buildings have performed well in some difficult weather over the last year or two. I wouldn't say that, you know, there's systemic failure as a possibility, but certainly there's some critical systemic needs. Yeah.
Any other questions or discussion? Diane, for clarification, did we make a motion on this when we had before?
No, so the motion, no, you didn't.
Okay,
The motion is quite lengthy but you need the actual document in order to, we would like to give you.
but
the
we could do a
document.
motion tonight that we are,
Yeah.
okay, all right,
But just make sure you're all around
okay,
for the February 21st.
all right. So we'll make the motion, we'll do that, and then we'll get the calendar. So I would entertain a motion on support for the SOIs.
I move to support the SOIs.
Second.
Very succinct. Motion and second.
You're welcome,
Any
Diane.
further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, now we got to discuss the calendar. So I know we've had, so the 21st you have out there, and we'll talk to that in a second. Tom or Marty, have we felt the select board yet on how much time they want? Because I know, you know, I've got my hand slapped for not giving them enough time in the past,
Yeah.
so I just,
Help me out, the SOIs are due to the MSBA April 12th, Diane?
It was in the,
I just got it.
it was in here.
What's in there?
Yes, the 12th, by 11:59 PM.
So we'd have to, I'd say we'd want to be probably 4 weeks prior to that date in the event that there were any concerns that need to be addressed, or in the event that, and there's also it takes a fair amount of time to upload and submit, sort of the clerical tasks associated with that take several days, so we want to give ourselves enough time. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but is that a reasonable, like a 4 weeks prior to the?
Yeah, I think what we discussed was having it to the select board for their March 4th meeting,
okay.
so that if there are revisions, they can come back to school committee,
We could
and then go
re-vote.
back to the select board at their following meeting, get them approved hopefully, and give us enough time to get them submitted before the deadline.
Perfect. So the suggested date is the 21st. Is everybody available for the 21st?
Okay.
And my question, it's a vacation week. Would we rather do it during the daytime, or would the nighttime would be better for everybody?
Doesn't matter to me.
Doesn't matter to me either. Doesn't matter to me. Fine with day. Fine with night. whatever.
Yeah, want to do it like at 10 o'clock in the morning? Diane, can we schedule that for 10 o'clock in the morning on the 21st? Thank you. Marty, do you need anything else from us on that?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I think that is all the regular business for tonight. Seeing that it is, I would, I'm just checking with Diane to be sure.
Yeah.
Okay. There is an executive session planned for this evening. I would entertain a motion.
I move that the school committee meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A, Purpose 2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation with collective bargaining with units B, C, D, E, F, and H, and Purpose 7, consideration of release of executive session minutes from previous meetings, not to reconvene into open session.
This motion requires a roll call vote.
Need a second?
Well, oh, sorry.
Second.
Yeah, thank you. Still requires a roll call vote. Motion is second. Any discussion? Call for a roll call. Susie?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Bronwyn?
Yes.
Armin, yes. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.